Hello, how are you? This is Maam Drea. Welcome to Management Information System. For copyright purposes, we are using Kenneth Laudon 13th edition. Um, we left behind few topics from chapter 6. Some of you pointed it out. So what is chapter 6 again? The chapter after chapter 5. Very good. Okay, foundations of business intelligence, databases, and information management. We did a few exercises in the classrooms about databases and then SQL. You did 3 challenges, and hopefully you already done the discussion and posted it online on our Schoology discussion board. So we will be doing later on the next video some of uh, Microsoft Access and querying. Are you familiar with that? If yes, very good. A little review. We talked about designing databases. So mostly these slides describes our activities which involve in designing a database. You need to create an efficient database. You must know the relationship or the cardinalities are among the various data elements, the types of data that will be restored, and how the organization will need to manage the data. You also need to know the conceptual database or logical database design is concerned with how the data elements will be grouped, what data in what tables will make the most efficient organizations. While on the physical database, it is how the database is arranged on direct access storage devices. So the design process identifies mostly the relationship, as I said, the cardinalities, and the normalization. So what is normalization? So normalization is streamlining complex groupings of data to minimize the redundant data elements and awkward many-to-many relationships. So this is usually what looks like before normalizations. You know, the data redundancy and the data dependency. So mostly in this slide, you can see that the process of how before normalization, wherein one table lists the relevant data elements for the entity. In here, order, we used order as the entity, and these are all have the details about the order, the part, and the supplier. So imagine um, order can include more than one part, and it may be that several parts are supplied by the same supplier. However, if we kept on using this table, the supplier's name and other information might need to be stored several times on the order list. So I imagine if you're the one doing all the data entries and information, and that's only the job you make, you have to repeat again every single data in the order list. So after normalization, the original relation order has been broken down into 4 smaller relations, meaning the relation order is left with 2 attributes and the relation line item has combined or concatenated. They key consisting of order number and part number. So dapat hiwa-hiwalayin. So mostly this shows a normalized tables, meaning the order table has been broken down into four smaller related tables. As you notice, the order table contains only two unique attributes, which is what order number and order date. The multiple items ordered are stored using the line item table here. And then what normalization means is that there should be little data to be duplicated when we create an order. So most of the information can be retrieved by just using the keys to the part and supplier. So here we have the supplier number as the foreign key, right? And this is the primary key. It is important to know that the relational database, relational database systems would try to enforce referential integrity rules to ensure the relationship between coupled tables remain consistent. So I will show you what ensure that relationship enforce that referential integrity means. So mostly, if you've done Microsoft Access before, there is this checkbox where you have to like says enforce referential integrity. It is when one table has a foreign key and that points to another table here in import natin dito. And you may not add a record to the table with the foreign key unless there is a corresponding record in the link table. So, meaning, for example, here the supplier number links the part table to the supplier table. The referential integrity means that a new part can't be added to the part table without a valid supplier number existing in the supplier table. It also means that if we are going to delete a supplier, any corresponding parts must also be deleted. So any changes you make is linked together. So next slide. Here it is defined what referential integrity rules means, which is the use of by RDMs to ensure relationship or cardinalities one-to-one, one-to-many, many-to-many between tables should remain consistent. We also have, we encountered ER diagram before, which is used by database designers to document the data models or illustrate relationship between entities. So we continue to discuss about designing databases. One technique database designers use in modeling the structure of the data is to use the ER diagram. We have other techniques like DFD or flowcharting. So illustrated also in our next slides. Symbols on the diagrams illustrate the types of relationships between entities. So what are those again? One-to-one, one-to-many, many-to-many. So in here, more illustrations. This diagram shows the relationship between the supplier, part, and line items and order that might be used to model the database. So, so basically the boxes represent what? This is the name of the table, right? This represents entities. The lines connecting the boxes represents relationship. A line connecting two entities that end with short marks designation. The it means one-to-one relationship, and a line connecting the two entities that ends with a chicken foot or crow's foot by the short mark indicates one-to-many relationship. So as you can see here, um, the order may contain many line items. A part can be ordered many times and appear many times as a line or item is just a single order. So each part can only have one supplier, but many parts can be provided by the same supplier. Okay. So what's the point here? So if the business doesn't get the data model right, the system won't be able to serve the business well. Imagine the company system will not be as effective as they could be because they'll have to work with data that may be incorrect, inaccurate, incomplete, or it's very difficult to retrieve. So it's our work that we should be able to understand the organization's data and how they should be represented in a database. It is perhaps the most important lesson here. Like Nike footwear or that have so many store chains or Shoemart, SM. So with more than 800 locations in different regions or cities, we could not achieve the business goal or strategy of having the right style of shoe in the right store for sale at the right price if we don't know that the data was not properly designed for rapid adjusting of store inventories. So what is big data? Um, so years before, most data that we collected by the organization just is consisting of transaction data that can be fit into spreadsheet, rows and columns, relational database management systems. But since the explosion of the internet, web traffic, email messages, social media content, and some electronic trading systems, these data may became unstructured or semi-structured data from this uh, web traffic, social media sensors, and so on. So we now use the term big data to describe these data sets, which have a huge volume that are beyond the ability of a typical DBMS to capture, store, and analyze. It can also reveal more patterns and anomalies. For example, we may analyze data from the customer credit card purchases. Oh, one restaurant might notice that from the data gathered, we learned that the quality was more important than the price for most of its fine dining customers who were mostly college educated or like me, like more wines, for example. So what we should do as the restaurant chain, we can respond to this information by introducing um, some of the good pairing for the wine, like vegetable dishes for the white wine, or more seafoods for the white wines. And then we could have more expensive wines. Therefore, it enables to what? Raise our sales by more than the 10% or more than our target. Now, suppose you wanted concise, reliable information about the current operations or business performance and changes across the entire company. If you're working in a big company, the data you need might have to be pieced together from separate systems. We saw the different applications or programs on sales system, accounting system, manufacturing system, which have different set of databases, and even sometimes from external sources such as demographic or competitor data. So you are now needing the use to use big data, right? So a contemporary infrastructure for business intelligence has today includes array of tools obtaining useful information from all the different types of data used by the business today, including also the unstructured or semi-structured big data. These capabilities include data warehouses, data marts, Hadoop in-memory computing, and analytical platforms. What is data warehouse? Data warehouse is a database that stores historical and current data from many core operational transaction transaction systems. So this one consolidates and standardizes information for for use across the enterprise, but the data here can be altered. So it provides analysis and reporting tools. Um, Companies often use enterprise-wide data warehouses where a central data warehouse would serve the entire organization, or they just create a smaller decentralized warehouses, which is the data marts. So kung ito SNR or Costco, this one is the marts, smaller or subset of the data warehouse, mostly the big retail wholesale. So can you imagine it? It is mostly highly focused portion of the organization's data is placed on a separate database for a specific population of users. So, for example, the company might develop marketing and sales data marts to deal with customer information like um, national bookstores or Barnes and Noble might use to maintain a series of data marts, one for point of sale data in retail store, another for college bookstore sales, and a third for online sales, typically focused on a single subject or line of business. So Hadoop. Hadoop is so this one is an illustration of the contemporary business intelligence infrastructure, which using the technologies we just described, the current and historical data are extracted from multiple operational systems, along with the web data, machine-generated data, um, unstructured audiovisual data, and data from external sources. And then, the data warehouses extracts, transform, or load this data from the multiple sources, both external and internal, including the Hadoop clusters, and transform it as needed for the data warehouse system. Um, An analytical platform has tools for power users, such as the one who's doing all the queries, report, data mining, doing the analysis, to extract a meaningful information from the data warehouse or from the Hadoop cluster. So the subset of data warehouse So the subset of data warehouse, which is the data mart, caters for the casual group of users. So what are those? We mentioned Hadoop. Hadoop enables the distributed parallel processing of big data across inexpensive computer. Um, the key services example is the Google Map Reduce. If you've done it before, and then what the Hadoop distributed file system or data storage. So Hadoop is usually an open source. It is an open source software framework. Um, it breaks a big data problem down into sub-problems, distributes them among up to thousands of inexpensive computer processing nodes, and then combine the result into just a smaller data set that is easier to analyze. Hinihimay-himay niya. This is usually used by the Facebook, Yahoo, NextBio, LinkedIn, so and the likes. In-memory computing, on is another hand, is used on big data analysis. We used the RAM, or the computer's main memory, for data storage, which avoid delays in retrieving data from this storage. So in memory, so it retrieves something from the memory. Some It can reduce hours or days of processing to just a second, and requires optimized hardware. We encountered this before on one of the reporters. I think it was Mr. Padilla. He discussed about Brook Brothers, right? So he mentioned that the Brook Brothers used SAPs for their supply chain system. Remember, SAP HANA is an example of in-memory computing, or it is one of the leading commercial products for in-memory computing, which SAP's high performance analytics appliance. And it is discussed in our case study by Mr. Padillo. wherein uh, where previous generations of databases handled just real-time tasks like processing the orders in an online transaction processing system or OLTP. One more complex task on different online analytics processing system or OLAP, which will be encountered later on. HANA merges these two in an architecture that shrinks the data footprints and enables businesses to just access the data real time since they are structured uh, on the same structure. So SAP HANA digitize the financing processes, take control of their supply chain. So what else? And it achieves insight across their business or distributes insights across the business. Now, commercial database vendors has developed a high-speed analytical platforms which use both relational and non-relational tools optimized for large data sets. What are those? These analytical tools analyze what relationship, patterns, and trends. The tools for consolidating, analyzing, and providing access to vast amount of data to help users make better business decisions. What are those? As I mentioned, the multidimensional data analysis, data mining, text mining, and web mining. OLAP. Hi everyone, I'm Olaf, and I like warm hugs. Olaf. That's not an Elsa and Anna Frozen thing. So OLAP is an online analytical processing. So this one uh, supports a multi-dimensional data analysis. Suppose your company sells different products with so detailed inventory, like the nuts, the bolts, the screws, washers, and you have different regions, region 1, region 2, 3, 4, 5, vehicle region, NCR region. So if you wanted to ask a fairly straightforward questions, such as how many screws or washers sold during this quarter, you could easily find the answer by just sending query about your sales database. But if you just wanted to know how many washers sold in each of your sales region and compare the actual result with the budgeted or projected sales. So to answer your questions, we need an online analytical processing. We can be able to view we can be able to view the same data in different ways using multi-dimensions. So each aspect of information like product, pricing, cost, region, time period is different dimension. It enables OLAP enables users to obtain online answers to different or ad hoc questions such as this in a fairly rapid amount of time, even when the data are stored in very large databases, such as sales for multiple years. So mostly you could find this in the library. Sino ba nagla-library sa atin? Um, this is the one figures that we're in. If you imagine, um, this one represents the actual sales and then the projected sales. This matrix of actual sales can be stacked up at the uh, top of the matrix of the projected sales and then form this cube. So if you're viewing it, comparing the actual sales for the product, and then you're going to topple it down. Now you're seeing a different dimension comparing the projected and then the actual. Then if you are going to topple it down again, you can see the side which compares the projected sales relating to the dimension of the region here. So if you rotate the cube 90 degrees again and again, you will see the region versus the actual projected sales. So there are many views possible in analyzing this. So data mining is mostly discovery driven. More discovery driven. So data mining provides insights into the corporate data that cannot be obtained by the one that we discussed before, OLAP, by finding hidden patterns, relationship into the large database, and then creating like inferring rules from them to predict the future behaviors. Example, the customer buying patterns. So the patterns and rules are usually guide for us to decision making and forecasting. So there are types of information obtainable from the data mining. It includes what associations. Can you give me some example? Associations, sequences, classification, clustering, and forecasting. So in the association, this is these are occurrences linked to a single event. For instance, when we usually buy a drink, a Coca-Cola drink, a soda drink, we see that in a pattern, in our purchase pattern in a supermarket, and then that supermarket can see that there, if you usually buy chips with soda most of the time. So this information helps the managers make a better decisions and learn to like profit for this or create some promotions. In sequences, now our current home quarantine situation. Can you give me one? So this is events that are linked over time. For example, at the beginning, when there is a possibility of a lockdown, what happened? There's a what? The sequence of event is grabbing for the supplies, like panic buying or anything. But the most common example in our book is that if we find ourselves purchasing a house within 2 weeks, usually 65% of the time, we buy a refrigerator and an oven. So just that's the sequencing. So now we have home quarantine. We lost alcohol, then tissue paper. I don't get it. And then what else? Just seven. It's just 1 week. So there's still 3 more weeks to go, then we might be grabbing more for food and the medical supplies and the manpower, right? So the classification is the type of information obtainable from data mining. Mostly this recognized patterns that describe the group to which an item belongs. By examining that existing items, it classifies the rules. For example, businesses such as credit cards or telephone companies may now worry about the loss of these steady customers. To help um, discover the characteristics of that customer, they did some profiling, and then it can help predict those customers, and they can devise the managers can devise special campaigns to retain that customers. Like sometimes they partnered with airline companies so that every purchases using the credit card would give you the data mileage, right? So that you can classify which one of your customers. And then they will send you spam mails. No, just kidding. Emails for promotion. Clustering. What is clustering? Grouping, right? So mostly the manner is like similar to classification, but when no groups have yet been defined. So data mining tool can discover different groupings within the data, such as finding affinity groups for bank cards or partitioning a database into groups of customers based on the demographics and the types of personal investments. And of course, forecasting or predictions, which is used in different ways. For example, forecasting might find patterns in data to help managers estimate the future value of continuous variables such as the sales figures or sales forecasting. Text mining, on the other hand, is this usually on the transcript, which is extract key elements from large unstructured data. That's transcript from call centers in text form, the stored emails, legal cases, patent descriptions, service reports, and so on. So in this section, there are other types of information that can be mined, such as text mining and web mining. What are the types of those unstructured textual data sets? And what is the useful information that we usually can extract from those? For example, data mining is used by customer service representative to help us um, identify major service and repair issues or the measure customer sentiment about their company. Thus, we have the sentiment analysis software. It is able to mine text comments in email messages, blog, social media, conversation, or survey form to detect a favorable or unfavorable opinions about specific subjects. This is usually um, identifies the voices of the customers or the feed from the feedback itself. So yeah, the web mining. So if we continue and exploring about mining the stored data for valuable information, in addition to the previous discussion, text mining, there are still several other ways to mine information that is through the web. The text uses the example of marketers using Google Trends or Google Insights or for search the services. This track the popularity of various words or phrases. That's why every time we type in on a Google search or we did some query, we learned that um, there's already a screen tip below, like the most commonly typed in search in. So we learn what people are interested in or what they are interested in buying. So web mining is discovery and analysis of useful patterns and information from the web, while it understands the customer's behavior, effectiveness of the website, and so on. Are still other? Okay. What do you use the World Wide Web for? Mostly, uh, companies utilize the web to access company databases. Um, Many companies uses it to make some internal databases available to customers also or suppliers. Typical configuration, it includes web server, application server, database server. Why do we use web for database access? Because it is easy to use. The browser software, you just type in where you want to go, and then the web interface requires few or no changes to database, and it is inexpensive to add a web interface to the system. So this is what usually happens, wherein we go on the internet, on the web browser, Internet Explorer, Chrome, and then we pass uh, the way data is passed from the database is through the user to a user with a web browser. So what type of data transformation occurs between the various appliances? I kind of illustrated this before. So what happens to the data as it flows from the database to the database server or vice versa? The data in the database is stored usually in the data format that requires database software. This is usually formatted data and needs to be transformed into XML format for presentation on the web. The database server makes this transformation and passes this along to the application server, which uses it to populate or construct an HTML page, and that's the one that we see. So the HTML web page is then sent to the web server, which sends it to the internet as the HTML web server, which is finally displayed on our screen. Although each of these software functions is represented by separate computers in this illustration, um, in fact, all of these servers can and often do reside in just a single computer as a software. So what usually happen here is that um, we usually used SQL just to understand what's, because if you are go directly to the database, all you see is just codes or language that you can understand, and the database can understand you. So we use a SQL to like a middleware, and then the application is the one that translates it or transfers the information from that organizational internal database. So the DBMS receives the SQL request and then provides the required data. We did a little bit of SQL, so you've been familiar with that. And among that is, for example, here, we see only the interface, the button, the form, but if we're going to see some of the behind the scenes, we cannot understand it. It have different language. So slow, sorry. For the internet connection. So yeah, I just wanna show you what it looks like. Um, let's go now. We're about to the last topic, establishing an information policy. So managing our data resources. Establishing an information policy is usually just a set of firms' rules, procedures, roles for sharing, managing, standardizing data. This slide discusses the firm's need for information policy in order to ensure that the firm's data is accurate, reliable, and readily available. Although the database administration group established and creates the physical database, the database administration function is responsible for the logical database design and data dictionary development. It says here that more than 25% of critical data in Fortune 1000 databases are inaccurate and incomplete. Do you agree that most of the big companies have big data and it's very much susceptible for redundant data, inconsistent data, and faulty input? So before new devices is in place, you need to identify and correct this faulty data and then establish better routines for editing data once the database is in operation. So have you encountered before or experienced a problem with the accuracy of data about them and then that is stored in a computer system? Most of the time, since I have a long name, the problem with the inputting my name in the field, the limit of the character, yeah, that's the sole problem I have. Recently, also, there's this agency I don't want to mention, which gives like money for 5,000 pesos for the employees affected by the um, COVID-19 pandemic. So they give form which is inputted on their database, is to input on their database. The problem with that is that they have the name, the address, the number, also the of course, if you're a regular or probationary. I saw a problem which is inconsistent to what they're saying. Where would they remit the money? They don't have a column for like a bank account number, right? So that's usually some of the problem in creating a database you need to consider. So why are information policy, data administration, and data quality assurance essential for managing the firm's data resources? So developing a database environment requires a policy and procedures for managing an organization's data, as well as creating a good data model and database technology. So a formal information policy governs the maintenance and distribution and the use of information in the organizations. So in a large corporation, a formal data administration function is responsible for the information policy as well as the development, data planning, and monitoring of the data usage in the firm. So the data that are inaccurate, incomplete, what else? Inconsistent, usually create what a serious operation and financial problems. Like what I give an example. Because of this, they create inaccuracy in product pricing or customer accounts and lead to inaccurate decision about the actions that should be taken by the firm. So here we also have quality audit, which is the structured survey of the accuracy and the level of completeness of the data in an information system. This is usually the survey samples from data files or survey end users for perceptions of the quality. What is data cleansing? There's another term for that. Data cleansing is another term is data scrubbing. So you need to enforce consistency among different sets of data. You need to be able to detect and correct the data that are incorrect, incomplete, improperly formatted, or redundant. So you are scrubbing or data cleansing. And that ends our topic in today, chapter 6 and database. Moving forward, I will create an example or an exercises for you to work on in Microsoft Access. For those who already have studied Microsoft Access or um, have a hands-on experience on that, this is will be a review for you. And if you want to download or subscribe on the channel to download the video, and um, I will be upload, or if you want to request an audio format for this, I will send it to your email and whatever channels you want. So thank you for joining. Have a great day. Stay safe. God bless.